Chapter 1 of Jefferson and His Colleagues. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Jefferson and His Colleagues by Alan Johnson. Chapter 1. President Jefferson's Court. The rumble of President John Adams's coach had hardly died away in the distance on the morning of March 4, 1801, when Mr. Thomas Jefferson entered the breakfast-room of Conrad's boarding-house on Capitol Hill, where he had been living in bachelor's quarters during his vice-presidency. He took his usual seat at the lower end of the table among the other boarders, declining with a smile to accept the chair of the impulsive Mrs. Brown, who felt, in spite of her democratic principles, that on this day of all days Mr. Jefferson should have the place which he had obstinately refused to occupy at the head of the table and near the fireplace. There were others besides the wife of the senator from Kentucky, who felt that Mr. Jefferson was carrying equality too far, but Mr. Jefferson would not take precedence over the congressmen who were his fellow boarders. Conrad's was conveniently near the Capitol on the south side of the hill, and commanded an extensive view. The slope of the hill, which was a wild tangle of verdure in summer, debouched into a wide plain extending to the Potomac. Through this lowland wandered a little stream, once known as Goose Creek, but now dignified by the name of Tiber. The banks of this stream, as well as of the Potomac, were fringed with native flowering shrubs and graceful trees, in which Mr. Jefferson took great delight. The prospect from his drawing-room windows, indeed, quite as much as anything else, attached him to Conrad's. As was his wont, Mr. Jefferson withdrew to his study after breakfast, and doubtless ran over the pages of a manuscript which he had been preparing with some care for this 4th of March. It may be guessed, too, that here, as at Monticello, he made his usual observations, noting in his diary the temperature, jotting down in the garden book which he kept for 30 years an item or two about the planting of vegetables, and recording, as he continued to do for 8 years, the earliest and latest appearance of each comestible in the Washington market. Perhaps he made a few notes about the seeds of the cymling cucurbita vermiosa and squash, cucurbita malopipo, which he proposed to send to his friend Philip Motzi, with directions for planting, or even wrote a letter full of reflections upon bigotry in politics and religion to Dr. Joseph Priestley, whom he hoped soon to have as his guest in the President's house. Toward noon Mr. Jefferson stepped out of the house and walked over to the Capitol, a tall, rather loose-jointed figure with swinging stride, symbolizing, one is tempted to think, the angularity of the American character. A tall, large-boned farmer, an unfriendly English observer called him. His complexion was that of a man constantly exposed to the sun, sandy or freckled, contemporaries called it, but his features were clean-cut and strong, and his expression was always kindly and benignant. Aside from salvos of artillery at the hour of 12, the inauguration of Mr. Jefferson as President of the United States was marked by extreme simplicity. In the Senate chamber of the unfinished Capitol, he was met by Aaron Burr, who had already been installed as presiding officer and conducted to the Vice President's chair, while that debonair man of the world took a seat on his right with easy grace. On Mr. Jefferson's left sat Chief Justice John Marshall, a tall, lax, lounging Virginian, with black eyes peering out from his swarthy countenance. There is a dramatic quality in this scene of the President to be seated between two men who are to cause him more vexation of spirit than any others in public life. Burr, brilliant, gifted, ambitious, and profligate; Marshall, temperamentally and by conviction opposed to the principles which seem to have triumphed in the election of this radical Virginian, to whom indeed he had a deep-seated aversion. After a short pause, Mr. Jefferson rose and read his inaugural address in a tone so low that it could be heard by only a few in the crowded chamber. Those who expected to hear revolutionary doctrines must have been surprised by the studied moderation of this address. There was not a Federalist within hearing of Jefferson's voice who could not have
Sample complete. Ready to continue?